Hi everyone and welcome to my channel. This is Create It with Robin and my name is Robin. Today we're going to be painting a patriotic heart-shaped banner or garland, whatever you want to, however you call it. But that's what we're doing today. The kits for these, you can private message me, send me a message here or leave a comment of how I can get a hold of you, and I will get a kit out to you. These will be on my website very soon. They're just not there yet. So let's get started. I do have the pieces that we're going to be working with here. So you're going to need your wood pieces. Let's go over a few things that you're going to want to grab before you get started. I like to use something to protect my table so I don't get paint all over it. And so I just have some craft paper down. Then I also use like a silicone mat to put my paint on because it comes off very easily. But you can also just use a paper plate. That works well too. You will also need sponges. I get these on Amazon. I'm also going to be using for this project a angle-shaped brush. Now this is a Wet n Wild brush from Dollar Tree, but it does have an angled head on it, so that'll work. Or I also have a small angle brush here. This one is a 1/4 inch. So we're going to be using an angle brush. I'm just not sure which one I want to use yet. You're going to need a chip brush. You can get these at Dollar Tree. And then I like these permanent markers from Mr. Pen, and the larger chisel point is what I use. But these I get on Amazon also. I'll link all of the items I use in the description of the video. And then for paint colors, I'm going to be using white by DecoArt, bright yellow by DecoArt, Tuscan Red by DecoArt, and True Blue by DecoArt. Now for my glue, I use a precision tip glue bottle that I get on Amazon. But what I put in here is, let me find the bottle here. Tight Bond Quick and Thick. So I just put it in a smaller bottle so I'm not carrying the big 8-ounce thing around. These help with these really little pieces. So that's what I'm going to be using for that. Okay, let's get started. The first thing we need to do is to clean our wood pieces. So when wood pieces come off of a laser, there is a residue that's left on them from the laser burning the top of the wood, which is what gives it the lines and the textures that you'll see in wood pieces. We need to get that off and make it look clean like this one. I've already previously cleaned this one, so let me show you what I do. You will need a baby wipe. You could also use a little chunk of a magic eraser. Get it a little bit damp and scrub it off that way. What I like to do is to take a baby wipe. You don't need the whole thing. I do like to clean the pieces that are going to be light, which are the stars. And when I do this, I do like to have a paper towel handy so that I can flip them over and get the water off, any of that dampness off of the wood pieces. As quickly as possible so it doesn't soak into the wood and cause the wood to expand. You can see there is a little bit of residue on the baby wipe. You'll see a little bit more of that when I get to the bigger pieces. Okay, we've got our stars cleaned. Now let's do these pieces. So I'm just going to move to another area of the baby wipe so you can see the difference. So I'm going to go ahead and scrub. And just wiping over those lines. And you can see there's the residue. This is called overburn or char. You're charring the wood and putting those marks into it. So we just clean that off. And now it's a nice piece, a nice clean piece to work with. So I'm going to do that with these other two. So look at that. That's all the char that was on those little wood pieces. All right, next what we want to do is to stain the backs of our pieces before we get going. And for that, I'm going to use Americana Gel Stain in the color Oak. Oak is my favorite color, but they do have several other colors that you can choose from. And I'm just going to take that same baby wipe, fold it over like into thirds just so I can grab it and have a good handle on it. I'm going to flip all of my pieces over since that's what we're working with. Put some of that on my baby wipe and just kind of give it a once over on the back. We're going to set that aside to dry, and I'm going to get these other ones done. I'm going to set that aside. I'll stick that on my little silicone mat so it doesn't stain my table. Okay, now for the next part, I use old boxes, like Amazon boxes, for this next one, or the next piece, but you want to have something to keep your pieces in place while you're painting them. These are so small that it really is hard to try and hold and paint. So by having a piece of a board, this is just like the end of a box flap that I use to paint on. And I've put painter's tape on so that the sticky side is up. And that's what my pieces stick to. So I'm gonna get, I will separate my wood pieces into color categories. So all of my stars are gonna be one color. And then these pieces, of course, there's gonna be 3 colors on top of this. And that's why we're gonna have to use a paintbrush for some of them. But for now, to do the base color, we're just going to them on here like that. So this is the board. If you're following along and copying me, this is just how I do it. Okay, let's get some paint out. We're gonna start with white. I always start with the lighter colors and work to the darker colors. White needs to be on any surface that's going to be light. And I like to do that like for my yellows, peaches, pinks, anything like that. You really want to have your first layer to be white, or you'll be painting these little stars probably 6 or 7 times just to get it the right color of yellow. That's going to cover, the white is going to cover up the wood color and give it a nice base to start with. So I'm going to take my sponge and I'm going to pull my mat down here so that you can see what I'm doing. So I put a little puddle of white right here. I'm going to take my sponge, I'm going to dip into that. I don't want that blob that's on there, so I'm going to tap that off and kind of get it all over the bottom of that sponge. And that's how I'm going to work with all of it. And I'll show you right here. I'm just going to very lightly tap. And get that white color on my stars. That first layer, I do like to do a little bit of a drag on it. So I'm gonna tap, 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 and then take just the very edge and drag that paint all the way to the edge. So tap, 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 and drag. I only do that to the first layer. Okay, now let's talk about these pieces. Because we have engraved areas or score marks, we don't want to get paint down into those lines, or maybe it's wording that's on there. Whatever it is, you don't want paint to get down in there. If you happen to do that, you will need something sharp like a pen, or this just happens to be a cookie scribe, but I've used it for painting for many, many years. But you could use anything that is skinny enough to get down into those edges. And what you want to do, if you get paint down in there, you want to get it out before the paint dries. So if you see it, take your little pointer tool, get into that line and just scrape across and dig it out. And that's all you have to do. Most of the time it comes out the first time you do it. But if you catch it after it's dry, it's a little bit tougher to get out. So I'm going to leave that handy, and we're going to do this again. Now I got way too much paint on there. Okay, so over here on here, we're going to do very lightly over those score lines so we don't get paint in there. Now because these are so small, I'm doing the whole thing in white when really the only parts I want are the white lines that are on here, and maybe the red. The red is very pigmented. I don't think I need it, but okay. So now that I got the paint on there, I'm gonna drag. Lightly drag. I don't want a big drag. So there we go. I'm going to pull this back. And I'm going to keep going on these stars to give it at least a coat of white. And I'm not even putting any pressure when I'm pouncing. I'm barely touching that wood. Now I'm going to drag. And I always go from the middle out. What you're trying to do is eliminate getting a lot of paint on the edges. I still do because I get heavy-handed with my paint, and that's okay because we're going to clean it up when we're done anyways. And I always start on an area where there are no score lines, just in case I have a big old blob of paint on there. I can catch it before I get into a score line. Okay, that's our first layer of paint. These are dry, so let's go ahead and do our yellow. I'm so sorry about the bouncing. I'm trying to not lean on my table, but that's kind of hard to do. I'm going to take another sponge. Do the same thing, only this time all I'm doing is tapping. All right, I'm going to come back to the white and do another layer of white just on the stripes. Those. So these have 2 coats of white, and this has 1 coat of yellow, or 1 coat of white and 1 coat of yellow. I do need another coat of yellow, so let's do that. All right, there we go. Let me dry the white real quick because it does need 1 more coat of white. Is good and dry, so now we're going to move on. Our yellow is done. We are complete on the stars, so I'm going to go ahead and remove them from the board. We don't need to have them on there anymore, so I'm just going to pull them off and set them aside. And I'm also going to take these pieces off. We don't need them on the board anymore because the rest of this is going to be one part by hand, which is the red, and then the blue is going to be sponged on a little bit differently. So we're going to go to the red. That's the next color up. Now this is what we are going to put on with our brush. So I'm going to try this Wet n Wild brush. Put my detail glasses on. I am going to go ahead and get my bristles wet and kind of get them in line there. And we're going to start up here on the top. And I am going to go ahead and do this hanger piece. Let's do the next one down. I just want to see if this brush is going to cut it, and it's already kind of fraying, like making a mess. So I don't know that I should continue with it. I don't want it getting in the white. So I'm going to switch brushes because it's kind of making me nervous. So I'm going to go with a smoother. Get my bristles wet. Same deal. And let's see how this one does. Much cleaner line for sure. And we're just going to take our time and get these red stripes on here. So I am going to speed up this part of the video because this is very repetitive. I have 4 of these to do. So you take your time and I will see you, or I'll be back when I get these all painted. These are painted red. The red stripes are painted and dry, so we can go to the next step. We're going to use our DecoArt True Blue. And we're going to paint this little portion up in the top. Now you can do it with a paintbrush, which is what I'm going to do, but you can also use like washi tape or painter's tape to do the next part. So I'm going to show you how to do it with the painter's tape. And I'm just going to take a piece of tape, cut it so it has a straight line. Actually, I didn't need to do that, but I'm going to put it right here where this line is. If I can get it off my finger. So I did that. And then I'm going to take this side right like that. So now you can do it that way on all 4 pieces and just use a sponge. So I'm done with my yellow sponge. This is what I do when I'm done with a color, is I cut it off, cut the painted end off, and now I have a fresh sponge I can use. So I'm going to show you with the blue. I don't want the blob, so I'm going to tap off and come over here. And there's my blue. So I'll do that again. Now I'm removing the painter's tape. And there you go. So a couple of different ways. If you don't have painter's tape, use washi tape. You know, whatever you've got. You don't need anything special to do that. Okay, next I want to put in some highlights before we do I'm trying to find the brush I want to use before we do the distressing on these. So I'm going to take my 1/4 inch brush and I'm going to use the white that's on my table. I am going to use clean water on my brush. Now you can do this with your sponge, which I'll show you first here. Let me see how much paint I have in the sponge. Yes, I have a lot of paint in that sponge. But you can do this very gently, touching it on the edge. You see what it's doing? Right like that. So you can do it that way. I like using my brush. So I'm going to dip into my water and I am just going to there we go. Okay, we've got those done. Now what I want to do is give some of these, give the stars some white distressing. So I'm going to take my sponge and I'm just going to barely tap the edge of the star. And let me show you I did one side and not the other so that you can kind of see what that's going to look like. So I'm going to do these others with just a little tap of white on there. I have not dipped my sponge back in the white paint because it's got a lot of white paint in it. And if yours has too much paint, tap it off on your table just like I did. All right, so that's done. I am done with the white sponge, so I am gonna cut the end off. Set that aside because I need to be able to get to my white paint that's on my palette here. I'm gonna pull that up here so I can get to it a little bit easier. And I'm also going to have a paper towel handy, and I'm gonna need my chippy brush. This is what we're doing next. Now I have dried paint on the end of mine, so I just kind of want to get it to where it's nice and bendy, and I'm gonna dip into the paint, get that on there, tap some of that off. I'm gonna come over here and kind of start working that into my bristles. We're gonna dry brush our pieces. My bristles are falling out. All right, let's see what this is gonna do. I'm gonna start down here on the bottom. Can you see? It's kind of scratching it with some of that white. So I did the bottom two, but not the top two. That's what I'm going for. You see it's kind of aging it, making it look weathered, not something that we just painted. So that's what I want. I'm going to set that aside and go to the next one. Those are done. Next part, we need to clean our edges. So you can see I did get some paint over onto the edge. I'm going to show you how to clean that off. It's not necessary that you do it. I just like to have it as a cleaner look. I do sell my pieces and I want them to look a little nicer. So I just take the chiseled marker and I use the toe of the marker, which is the point that's furthest out towards the board, the side of the board where the paint is. And I'm going to go into those little creases. And what you want to try not to do is to get that marker on the painted side. You just want to clean up the edge, not the front. If you do happen to get it on the front, you will need to sand it off and paint over it. So just try not to get it on the front. And I just go around the edge and take that right off. If you have any questions whatsoever about any of these tutorials, leave a comment. I will get back to you. I'm not going to worry about my stars. They look pretty good. But now it's time to get those glued on. So I'm going to use my Type Bond Quick and Thick that I have in my precision tip bottle. And we're going to get those on. All right, look at that. Those are done. Now I'm gonna clean up my mess and bring out the next thing that we're gonna use to put it all together. Now I'm just taking fabric and cutting it about 1 inch wide. And my red was already cut, so I don't need to do any more than that. And these fabrics, I don't know where I got them. Had them for a long time. But I don't want them this long, so I am going to cut them probably in half, or maybe like 6 inches. And I'm still gonna probably end up cutting more off than that when we get done. And let's see, I need 3 of them. I'm going to end up tying these on to our banner. Is this 12? No. Oops. Okay, there's 3 and 3. I've got more fabric if I need it. Okay, so I am also going to use some white beads. Three of those. You could take wood beads and paint them white, whatever you wanted to do. You could use all beads. You could use a red bead, a white bead, and a blue bead, or all white beads. You don't even need fabric. Whatever you want to use, this is yours. So make it how you want it. All right, so I'm going to take some jute twine. You can use ribbon. You could do many different things. And I use a piece of floral wire, like 3 inches long, and I fold it in half. And I'm going to use that to thread all of my jute and to thread my jute through my wood pieces and my beads. So I'm going to take my wood piece, my first wood piece, and I'm going to go from the top to the bottom, this way, to the back, and come back through this way. So I have one on there, and then I want to do a bead. And we're going to do it again, from front to the back. And back through, back to front. And then a bead. Next piece, front to back. I'm going to move all these down. I'm going to need more space. Another bead. And then my last little wood piece, front to back. Slide it all the way down and then back to front. Okay, I can remove this now. And now I'm going to tie it off on this one end. So I do like to have a good hanger, probably 4 inches. A big 4-inch loop right here, because I'm going to wrap it around my finger and pull it through. Make sure you're holding these ends down here and pull tight. And there's my one end hanger. So the rest of these, I'm going to move my fabric out of the way and open this up. And what I want to do is make it so it looks even through the middle of all of these, like it has a good, I'm going to say like a good 2-inch space between each one. So that looks good right there. Kind of like that. Okay. So you have your blue on one side and your red and white on the other. So what I want to do is put blue here and red here. Make sense? So I'm going to take my fabric, and I might even want to make these small, thinner. I do. I don't want these so fat. These pieces are not big and chunky, so I'm going to make my fabric smaller. So I'm going to take this piece and let's just see what it looks like by cutting it in half. Yeah, I think that'll look better. So we're going to do it that way. If you like to rip your fabric, go ahead and do that. And I'm only doing the fabric and beads in between the wood pieces. I'm not doing them on the ends. You can do them on the ends if you want. Okay, so that one's going there. And right there. Okay. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take our fabric piece. I'm going to shift this down and work on this one right here. I'm going to take my fabric, and you can either tie it over and knot it. I'm going to fold mine in half and hope that this is long enough to do this. If not, I'll pull it over and knot it. But I'm going to bring it out up through the back. So I have a loop right here where my finger is. I'm going to open that loop and pull the fabric through and tie it. Only I did it backwards. Should have gone the other way. So instead of going under, I'm going to come under this way. Open up that loop, pull the legs through, and pull this. There we go. That's what I want right there. Twist my fabric around so that it's facing this way. There we go. And then I have my bead. And now my other fabric. So I'm going to do that same thing. Fold it over. Go from top to bottom. like that. Okay, let's do this one. But I don't want these tails to be so long. I think actually these red ones, because they're about the same length as the wood piece, I think those are good. I think the blue ones need to be cut. So I'm gonna trim them up so they're all about the same length, which I want them to be about to the bottom of the wood piece. See, that looks a lot better. And these will slide so you can move them around. Okay, let's take off a little on this one. And there we go. So cute. So cute. Okay, so I have about a 3-inch over here with my loops, which my loops, I know I need 8 inches to make a 4-inch loop plus the 3-inch. So I need 11 inches over here on this end. So I'm going to cut this, do my 4-inch loop. And tie it off. Again, wrap it around my finger and stick that loop through. Hold my ends and pull tight. And there we have our 2 ends and our little banner. Right like that. All right, you guys, thank you for painting along with me. If you are still looking for a kit, reach out to me and I will let you know where they are. Or I can invoice you for a kit and you can do your own. The kits are just wood pieces only, but again, I give you everything that you need will be in the description of this video. Thank you for hanging out with me and I will see you on the next one. Thank you so much. Bye.